Hi, my name is Carly Williamson, and this is the video forum discussion for week 6, activity 2. What I'm going to be doing in this video is discussing a case that I have selected for this particular exercise and talk about the data and the data analysis that would be important to this organization and its stakeholders. The case that I chose was from the Harvard Business Review of 2013, Escaping the Discount Trap, written by Eric T. Anderson. It's about Bossi et Faure. I'm just going to refer to it as Bossi. It is a medical device manufacturing company, and they sell medical devices to hospitals throughout the Sao Paulo, Brazil area. And they had run into a problem. Their model was very, their business model was very price motivated, and they had actually received a tip on maybe making it more solutions selling motivated instead. And so this case is about the head of operations and the sales director trying to get all different types of hospitals on board with this solution selling approach instead of just being fixated on the price of the products and what they were getting, because for the specialized hospitals they weren't having any issues, but for more general and philanthropic hospitals they were having issues with having to constantly discount their merchandise in order to keep these hospitals as customers. And the model was very focused on price and the number of units sold, and it was really hurting the profit margins because they were heavily discounting that their profit margins were actually dropping on almost every sale to these general hospitals. So they had to come up with a solution, and they had received advice from actually a director at another hospital about maybe implementing more systems to allow for more of a conversational flow and more, instead of just products, also services. So like creating apps and maybe supplying equipment that can be rented out for customers to use at home, such as like blood pressure monitoring. I know in this specific case they talked about proposing to one of their general hospitals for blood pressure monitors at home and apps that you're able to send the data to the hospital for preeclampsia, which is a high blood pressure pregnancy condition. And so, but it comes to the whole case comes to odds when they meet with one of the directors at the hospital, at the general hospital, and the general hospital is definitely very price oriented. Says I have to have the discounts. I can't survive. I can't work with you if I can't have these discounts, and you don't know if our patients would use this. How would we know you'd stay here and train? Like there's all these risks, and we don't know the potential rewards out of it yet. And so what I found to be extremely relevant was in the Weiss reading that we had in chapter 6, the risk to reward ratio. There actually isn't a lot of data provided in this case study on behalf of Bossi. They've got all these great ideas, and they definitely do have a potential to be great, and I don't mean that air quotes in a sarcastic manner, but they haven't conducted enough research outside of the very specified hospitals that they already work with. They don't have any published research to present to the general hospitals in order to get them to understand that the risks would outweigh the rewards by more than a factor of 2. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, go back to pages 109 and 110 in the Weiss reading, where he talks about the risk-reward ratio in the section, the value proposition. And this is extremely important to consider, especially when you're a hospital and you have to take into account purchasing so many different, so many units of equipment in order to cover your entire hospital. especially the general and philanthropic hospitals tend to be a little bit larger. So you really have to consider that when you're a hospital director, the prices, and it really is an important point for them. And the directors at BOCI, Alberto is the head of operations, and Cora is the sales lead. And they need to sit down and they need to either create a work team, or they need to sit down with the operators of the hospital and also their operators of their own company and sit down and ask the why questions. Why is solutions-based better for every hospital? Is it better for every hospital? Why or why not? Just because it works in the specialized hospitals, does that also mean that it's going to work in a general hospital? Why would it work? Why wouldn't it work? And then, of course, when you get to that, there are deeper questions. Is it because of the profit margin? Are you really trying to improve patient care? Are you trying to improve the hospital relations with your own company so that way you'll have more sales in the future? They really need to figure out what their objective is here. And if their objective is just to implement the sales selling technique, or the solution selling technique, then they really need to reevaluate their objectives, because that's not a clear objective. They don't have a reason for why, and they don't have the data to back up any kind of reasoning that they've supported in this case study. So of course the hospital hospital rep that they are talking to says, you're really just trying to upsell me. We simply just don't have enough cash for all this equipment that you're proposing. And BOCI's representatives keep pushing and pushing the issue, and it shows, and then the director points to another set of people that are in the courtyard waiting for a meeting with the same person in order to sell their medical devices, and how they're willing to sell at a discount. And it shows how competitive the market really is, and BOCI needs to sit down and reevaluate why the solutions-based approach is going to be better than a discounting approach. Is it really going to increase their profit margins enough? Is it worth risking the relationship between this general hospital, which they say in the case it says that their relationship has been for 15 years, and that it's one of the largest in the area, and the other hospitals come to them for advice, and that's how they get their sales throughout the area. So is it really worth jeopardizing this relationship? Why would they need to reevaluate their strategy? And the big question at the end of the case study is, should BOCI abandon solution selling for some of its customers? And that's a why or why not question. You can't just say yes or no and have an answer. You really have to sit there and think, well, you have to sit down and think of pros and cons and outweigh these pros and cons using the risk-to-reward ratio. Assign values of -5 to +5 to each pro and con, and then weigh them out at the bottom and see, is it going to be right for the general hospitals? And another key thing for the stakeholders to take away is that it's not going to be an overnight switch. They may need to continue with their price reductions and their discounting in order to keep this hospital as a customer, so they can maintain good relationships, while collectively with both the hospital and their own marketing staff and their own staff work towards a new solution, so they can get to a point where they can give them the right products, basically package everything for their budget, instead of trying to force them into a completely new realm of technology and apps and training that are just going to raise the budget. But really the most important thing here is that BOCI needs more empirical data. They need to do their own research and calculate it through the hospitals that they've already worked on and they've already seen the success, but they have success and they have no way to show it. So I definitely think that the hospital has a right to be apprehensive, but I definitely think it's also an idea that needs to be considered for for both parties, and it definitely could be, if performed well, it could be a great scenario, but if taken in haste and not well thought out, then it can definitely be a detriment to both, and they could end up either driving that company into the ground, or they can lose the hospital as a customer altogether.